People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
All right, guys, this is a podcast I've been looking forward to doing for a long time. We have a legend in magic, and we'll get into more of that later on. But Kevin Spencer, when I was up and coming kid, I only did $5.99 magic tricks I got at the store. I saw Kevin Spencer do this huge David Copperfield-esque illusion show with the backdrops and the lights and everything. Nice. And I was just in awe. This dude has been an inspiration to me throughout my career. I love this guy so much. He still talked to me when I was a nobody, and he talks to me today that I'm a semi-somebody. This guy's awesome. Everybody, it's Kevin Spencer. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited about this. When you first asked me, I was like, this is going to be really cool. I can't wait to do this. This will be fun.
Well, dude, I want to know all about your career. So all I know is outside looking in. And I guess people understand that, but you don't really, because you didn't follow my career tooth and nail. No, I didn't. I only know you were on the cover of Magic magazines. You had this amazing show. I have a DVD I bought at back of the room sales of you in Tokyo and this whole Magiclife kind of tour. Mm-hmm. We have a television show now, Kevin, that follows my family around doing 400 shows a year. That's kind of like that Tokyo thing. It follows us around, loading in, loading out, driving to and from.
Oh, very cool.
Like that, right? Because that's what everybody wants to know. How do you make it work? So we just make a show out of that, right? And then all of a sudden you just fall off the magic scene and you're doing this other, like, I don't want to say the thing wrong, but in my mind, it's Project Magic type stuff. We'll get into that more. And if I said something wrong just now, I apologize. And then you're not doing that anymore. And you're doing this and a whole 180. I want to get into it. Let's get into it. All right. So where'd you get started in magic?
So like most of us, saw a magician when I was a kid. First magician I ever saw, I was 5 on television. And can remember saying to my mom, when I grow up, I'm going to be a magician. I grew up in the South, Mississippi, as every good Southern mother does. She patted me on the head and said, you can do whatever you want to if you put your mind to it. They bought me a magic set when I was 8. I learned all of those little tricks, elementary school, junior high school. And then I actually kind of flipped a switch in junior high school. I was still really interested in magic, but I really loved playing the piano. And I dove deep into studying piano, classical piano. And I ended up getting a really great teacher. And I actually went to college with the idea that I was going to be a concert pianist. That was my career goal at that point. I went to school on a music scholarship. And it was in college that the magic bug just kind of reared its head again. I went to school young, which was kind of a good thing, bad thing. But I had an opportunity. I went back home and Doug Henning was performing. I was 18 years old. I was a sophomore in college. Doug Henning was doing a show in Maryville, Indiana. And I had this opportunity to buy tickets. And so my best friend and I drove up, was about an hour and a half. We drove up to Maryville, Indiana to see Doug. And now I'm pretty excited. And I can remember writing a little note that said, "Dear Mr. Henning, would like to do this for a job. Any advice you could give me would be appreciated." Signing my name and giving that to an usher. And this is the Holiday Star Theater. It's like 3,300 seats. It's sold out. Guy looks at me and he said, all right. So about 10 minutes later, he comes back and he goes, look, I don't know what to tell you, kid. I gave it to somebody backstage. I don't know if Mr. Henning's going to get it, but if you want, what you can do is go to the stage door at the end of the show. And if he comes out, that would be great. And if he doesn't, then, there's really nothing I can do. So we get through the show. And of course, it's an amazing show. We get to the show and I make it around to the backstage door. And there are probably 200, 250 people there. all of whom have sent up little notes because it's magic clubs from Chicago and from Gary and, Lafayette. They've all driven up to see Doug Henning, and there's big groups of them, and they've all sent a note up. And I thought, okay, so this is crazy. I've got an hour and a half drive. We should probably go. It's already late. And I was literally had my hand on the door, pushing the door open when everybody got really quiet because somebody had come out from the backstage area. And this guy came out and he just looked and he goes, "Is Kevin Spencer here?" And I turned around. I said, "That's me." And he said, "Mr. Henning would like to see you in his dressing room." And I was that stunned. And so was everybody else, right? Everybody's like looking back, like, who is this little skinny kid? I was like 5'2" and about 115 pounds. And I kind of, it was like the Red Sea. They all just kind of parted like this. And I walked through the middle of this group, went backstage, and I spent about 2 hours talking to Doug. I met Debbie, talked to her for about 30 minutes. She went up to go to bed. I talked to Doug for a little while, and then Doug said, "Look, I've really got to go. I got 2 shows tomorrow, but you don't have to leave. These are all of my people. Ask them anything you want." And then he looked at them and he said, "Anything he asks you, just tell him." And it was the beginning of a really awesome relationship with Doug. He took such an interest, and I don't know why. I have no idea what it was, why he said my name, why, I used to joke and say, maybe he just put all of our things in a hat and he pulled one out and said, "This is who we're calling back." I don't know. All I know is it was the beginning of a really great relationship. And it was because of my relationship with Doug that I also met people like Jim Steinmeier and Willie Kennedy and all of the connections, because Willie was Doug's illusion manager and Jim was one of Doug's creative consultants. So through that kind of experience, I got a little deeper into the magic world, but I grew up in rural America, 2 hours from a magic shop, 2 hours from any magician. So I learned everything that I learned about magic by going to the library and checking out books. And then when I was in junior high, I saved my money and I bought the Mark Wilson course in magic. And I knew, because I loved like the bigger stuff. My dad is a carpenter, and we would go out in his workshop and my dad would help me build these things. And what's really cool is even now I still have some of those original smaller props that my dad and I got to build together, which was kind of cool. And that's where it started. I in the middle of college, I changed my major from music to psychology. A couple of reasons why. Psychology is the degree you get when you're not really sure what you're going to do with the rest of your life. So you get a psych degree.
I thought it was religion. That's what she has. I thought it was religion.
I think the religion might have been a little more practical even than the psych degree. But I did psych and was just really intrigued, which I think plays full circle into what I'm doing now. But that's how it started. I changed my major to psychology. I worked my way through college doing magic shows. And when I finished school, it just seemed to be the natural thing to keep going.
So a couple of things I'm doing in the 90s, I really started pumping up and trying to buy everything I could buy at a magic shop. I didn't have much money. So I'm buying, little $5 things off the rack, anything I could, decks of cards, $5 thing, trying to get bigger. A die box. I had to save up for something like that, right?
Yes.
I sent my mom to the store and I said, "They did a pom-pom trick, Mom. I really want that trick. If you're going to the store, please buy me that. I'll pay you back for it." This was $45. It wasn't a $5 trick. And I'm like, well, I'm a magician now. I have a real prop. But I mean, this pom-pom sound, this pom-pom sound, but how are they connected? That's my routine.
Yeah.
Then I saw Kevin Spencer do it. And I'm like, a real magician's do it. That is a real prop. But Kevin talked about I remember this vividly, Kevin. This is 30 years ago, dude, at least. And he talked about going to Australia and they had this weird thing. I totally remember your routine. But see, I didn't learn about Doug Henning until after his passing. He wasn't on television in my youth, right? He was already gone. So once he died, I'm like, who's this guy that died? Who's this guy on the cover of Magic Magazine? Who is this? Who is this? And then I saw that he did the pom pom trick, and that probably influenced you.
I learned the pom pom trick from Doug.
There you go, full circle, full
Wow.
circle. But it was an Australian routine. What was the
Yes.
routine? What was the?
You're so right. I would talk about how, we got to travel a lot. One of my favorite places to go was Australia. And I think I would even say something like the land of kangaroos and koala bears. Everybody spoke English, so that was really good. And I would talk about, after one of our performances, an older man met me back at the dressing room with a little box. And he opened that little box and he pulled this thing out. And he said, here,
I'm
take
getting goosebumps.
to America, they'll love it. And then it just kind of rolls into it from there.
I love it, man. I never forgot that. Thank you. That was very magical to me, dude.
That's
You
so,
made-
I just can't believe you even remember that. That's pretty awesome. I'll tell you that there's some truth to that story. I was in Australia, and when I was there for touring for 6 weeks, but the first 2 weeks of that tour, I was really sick. So when I actually landed in Melbourne, I went straight to the hospital, and I had double pneumonia. So the first 10 days of tour, we're just kind of all put on hold. But during those 10 days, I didn't stay in the hospital. I was released, but I was like under house arrest. And I met this really amazing older magician, Australian magician, and I wish I could remember his name. But he called and he said, oh, I hear things aren't great. He said, but if you'd like, you can hang out. And so he would literally come and pick me up, and then I would go hang out at his house, and he would just show me magic. And I would stay there for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, and then he would take me back and I would rest. And they'd beat on my back and make me drink all this kind of medicine. And after 10 days, I was good enough to kind of get back up and do the rest of the tour. So that older man that I met that had the little box is kind of a real guy.
Wow.
Yeah. It's kind of cool how, we weave these stories of like what really happened, and yet we kind of create this whole magic around them.
And that makes your show unique. Nobody else can steal that, really. I mean, because it wouldn't be them. So even with comedy, it's the same thing. If you can, everything you can in a comedy show, it can weave your personal story. People can't steal your joke because it's not theirs. No, that really happened to him,
But what do you think? I think that's one of the big crisis challenges within the world of entertainment as a whole, but really within magic. Why would we want to steal somebody else's routines? I mean, what is it that happens within comedy or within magic where you can't look at something and say, how can I make that my own? What's the story that I can tell that's going to be my story in that trick?
This ties into last week's episode so well. I had Matt Donnelly on. Matt Donnelly now works for Penn and Teller, and he has an improv background, and he just started magic like 8 years after working for Penn and Teller. And I'm amazed that you're not a Penn and Teller clone. And I couldn't get the words out. And I've been thinking about this all week because I want to tell Matt what I'm really trying to think. I think the reason he's not a Penn and Teller clown is because he already knows who he is. And I think that he has that improv background. When we're kids, when I worked at the magic shop in the 90s, so many magicians were verbatim lines in their show of what Copperfield did 2 months ago on the television show because they'd watched that video over and over. They thought they had to play that music. They thought they had to say that line. And any joke Copperfield said, they thought they were okay to say it because now it's publicly known. And it's like, no, that's not right. No. But it's easier when you're older because you know who you are. We tell the story about my family being on the road 400 shows a year. I talk about my marketing and my logo, and my teacher said, make a logo people can read. Mine looks like scribble, but it says Wes Iseli, Magic Man. So it makes sense. That's all true things. I think it's because you're older and you come into your own. I got that off my chest now. I've been thinking about that all week.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think one of the biggest problems with anybody that comes into entertainment, but especially within magic, we are so influenced by the people that we see because it's not the songs you sing or or what you're going to play on a guitar or on a piano. You're seeing a trick. And there's this thinking, I think, when we're younger, that when you see the trick, That's the routine. That's what it is. And you don't think about the fact that that person is probably spent an enormous amount of time coming up with that routine. And so we see it and we go, oh, so that's what you do with that trick. And so you just do it. But when you do start to figure out who you are as a person first, humanly, and then who you are as a performer and who you want your audience to see. Doug gave me 3 pieces of advice, and I held on to these through my whole career. He said, take acting lessons, not because you're ever going to be an actor on the stage, but you need to be comfortable in the words that you say if you want your audience to be comfortable with you. Take dancing lessons, not because, God forbid, you should ever dance on the stage, but if you're not confident in the way that you move on the stage, the audience is not going to be comfortable with the way you move on the stage. And then the last thing he said, and I think this is the best advice, it's the advice I give to every young magician who asks me, what do I need to do? Doug said, always be yourself, because an audience will recognize if you're a phony. And if they like you, they will like what you do. And if they don't like you, there's nothing you can do that will make them like you. So from really early on, I just kind of wanted, and of course, there was a lot of Henning influence in my show early on, but I just really wanted to kind of embrace who I was as a person. What do I have to bring to the stage? And I think you nailed it when you said, when we're younger, we don't have as much lived experience. We don't have as much story in us. And as we get older, those stories just kind of naturally become a part of the presentations that we share with our audiences. Or at least they should.
Right. Well, I mean, and then, yeah, I guess there's some, I mean, I still belong to the magic clubs and still frequent them often. And you get a guy in his 40s that gets into a magic club and does it just like he saw somebody did on Penn and Teller. So it's still a learning curve, but I think it's easier for somebody that's been doing it as long as we have to pick up a new trick, and it's totally different than how other people do it. Yeah.
So I would say the cool, oh, sorry, did you have a question?
Nope, go ahead, go.
I was going to say, I think probably one of my favorite parts of our career is as we got into that place where we had some real credibility within the markets that we were in. We started straight out of college in the college market. That was the first place that we landed. And that was just kind of a fluke thing. I was living in Texas. That's where I moved after college because I didn't want to be in Chicago. It was too cold. Didn't want to be in New York because it was too crazy, and didn't want to be in LA because it's LA. So the next place to go was Dallas, because Dallas was just starting to kind of develop this really rich entertainment, performing arts kind of culture. So I moved to Dallas. I roomed with my old college roommate. He was down there getting a television degree. And my wife, Cindy, was a diamond consultant for the Zale Corporation. And she was engaged to my roommate, Stan.
Oh.
Yeah. So I moved down and I get a job managing a clothing store in the mall. And on the weekends, I'm doing magic shows. And I'm trying to figure out how to put this thing together. So Stan is in school, and because he's a television film major, he's running a camera for a show. And he comes back home and he goes, Andre Cole is going to be on campus. If you'd like to go, I can get you some tickets to the show. So I was like, yeah, that would be great. So he gets tickets for me and Cindy, but he's engaged to Cindy. So I'm just kind of tagging along. He's running the camera to video Andre's show for him. And Cindy and I have seats together. And of course, it's Andre Cole. It's a great show. So during that little intermissions section, Cindy and I are kind of sitting there, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool to like be able to perform on college and university campuses? This would be pretty awesome. And this guy in front of us turns around and he goes, what do you do? And Cindy's like, oh, he's a magician. And she starts talking to him and he goes, well, so you're interested in performing on college campuses? And I said, yeah, that would be really cool. And he goes, well, there's this organization called the National Association of Campus Activities, and I'm the director of student activities here at the school. And so he introduced me to this whole NACA entry point for my career into the college market. So that all kind of unfolded over the next few years. As a young single guy living in Texas, during a time when every Texan had a diamond ring on their hand. You know, it was just the thing, and it was usually a big diamond ring in the state, in the shape of the state of Texas. Well, my hands are not. I don't have big hands, and there's no way I'm putting like this giant Texas ring on my hand. But my wife is a diamond consultant for Zale Corporation, so now they're looking out for me a diamond ring. Long story short, I end up buying this ring that comes in. It's a beautiful men's ring. It's 5 stones. It's a quarter of a carat. I pay a wholesale price for it. And they say to me, you should get that appraised so you can put it on your insurance. Okay, fine. So they take it back. Well, when they get it back, it's not a quarter of a carat. It's a carat and a quarter. It's come into inventory mislabeled. And so it's worth a lot more than what I paid for it. And I said, oh, so do I need to pay something different? They're no, we sold it. That's the way it came in. We sold it. So now I have this beautiful men's diamond ring that's got 5 stones in it that are total weight are a carat and a quarter. And for anybody that knows anything about diamonds, they're also VVSI1s. So very, very slight inclusions. All of these stones are usually set aside for women's engagement rings. You don't get 5 of them in a men's ring. So when I got started in this whole thing, I would take that ring down to the pawn shop in Dallas and I'd pawn it and I'd get some money and I'd run out and I'd do one of these college conventions, one of these NACA college conventions. And I would try to make as many contacts as I could. And then I'd come back and I'd work 2 or 3 jobs so I could go get that ring out of hock. And I'd get it out and it would be time for the next conference. And I'd take it to the pawn shop and I'd pawn it and I'd get enough money to go and do another conference. And then I'd come back and I'd work these jobs so I could get it out. I still have the ring. I don't wear it anymore, but I still have it because it was such a really important part of the way that we got started. And our college career just kind of took off. We happened to be in the market about the same time as the amazing Jonathan and Pat Hazel.
Stuart McDonald. He mentioned your name.
Yeah. And Stuart McDonald, Stuart and Lori were there. And Stuart and Lori were the only ones that were really kind of doing illusions. Everybody else was doing like comedy kind of magic. And Cindy and I came in with kind of a different approach than Stuart and Lori were doing. And so it just kind of, it clicked. You know, how you just feel like you're in the right place at the right time. It was that. And it just clicked. And over the next few years, I won Campus Entertainer of the Year twice. 1 year I beat out the Indigo Girls, so that was kind of cool. I know that really dates you right there. It's like Indigo Girls. Who are they?
No, but that's awesome, dude. That's great. Yeah.
So, and the show just kept getting bigger and bigger within the college market. So we started doing these shows in student unions and student centers. And then as the show started getting bigger and we started adding these illusions, we did our first national NACA showcase in Nashville, Tennessee at Opryland. And you've got, 20 minutes to perform in front of 3,000 college students who are going to determine your future for the next couple of years. We're backstage, we're praying so hard, we're just, and you're terrified, your adrenaline's pumping, and you're trying not to get sick because you've got just so much adrenaline in your system. And we did that first NACA National Showcase, and we ended with Metamorphosis, which happened to be probably our strongest illusion in our show. I'd gotten a lot of tips on that one from Doug Henning. And so our switch was crazy. But when you've got that much adrenaline pumping through your body, it's really crazy. And we remember making that switch and the audience just on their feet in a roar. It was just like, oh. And we wrapped it all up. We packed it away and we're running to the exhibit hall. And Cindy looks at me. She goes, How do you think it went? I'm like, I don't know. I guess we'll find out when we get to the exhibit hall. And we got to the hall and we booked the next 2 years of our college career off that one NACA showcase. And we were booked every day. It was like a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, a Saturday. And it was just boom, 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 boom. We were exhausted at the end of those tours in the fall and the spring. But we booked the next 2 years of our tour based on that one college national showcase.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing, dude. That's
It
really
was
good.
cool. It was cool. And then we started, that's when I kind of reached out to Jim after that. Reached out to Jim and said, you know, I'd really like to start working with you. And I will never forget this. He looks at me, you know, we're on the phone and he says, not yet.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. And I said, oh, he says, not yet. He said, almost, but not yet. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, not in an arrogant way. I'm thinking to myself, does he even know who we are? Does he know what does he mean? Not yet.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Because, you know, you're just doing your thing. You're not trying to be known by anybody in the magic. You're just doing what you love, what you want to do. And when he said not yet, he said, I'll know when you're ready. And so it was about a year later that he called and he said, hey, you ready?
Oh,
And yeah, it was pretty awesome. And then we got ready for our second NACA showcase. And at this point now we had some bigger illusions in the show. And this one was in Boston. And it
wait,
was
real quick.
Yeah.
I'm curious about just when we first started doing illusions, I passed a little note to Rick Thomas in Vegas on our honeymoon. And I'm like, what do you do? How do you do it? Because he gave us a great bit of advice. He said, buy one new illusion a year because you don't want a warehouse full of stuff you don't do.
That's
and
right.
you can always bring in stuff from future years. What was your, I'm just asking, we're on the air, I know, but what was your, did you put 10% back in the business? What was your back in the business rate that you put in? Because your show was huge with backdrops and lights and lasers and yeah.
So it kind of really developed into that. I think our strategy was more along the lines of, one, I think it circles back to what you said earlier, knowing who you were as a performer. Because when you know who you are as a performer, you also know the kinds of illusions that you want to do. I made 2 bad purchases of magic in my career.
You did great.
Yeah. Illusions that I thought, illusions that I still love. One of them was Interlude, which was just a beautiful illusion. And I really thought that would be a great piece for us. We bought it, we practiced it, and my wife and I both, after like months of working on the thing, we both looked at each other and we went, this isn't us. You know, yeah, it was just, we got caught up in the fact that this was a really cool illusion, but it wasn't us. And so we turned right around and sold it. And then the second one was a stage magic trick that I'm not even sure anybody performs. It was called Puppet Theater. Beautiful piece of magic designed by Jim Steinmeier. I think I might be the only person that ever had one made, but it was a really great piece of magic. Just wasn't me. So I ended up selling it to a friend of mine, Travis Winkler. I don't know if you knew Travis. Travis passed away a couple of years ago of cancer. But, he had this just really great kind of show, and Puppet Theater was just a pretty his style. And so I called him and said, hey, I got this trick. And he goes, I'll take it. So those were the 2 big bad magic purchases that I had. I think what Cindy and I did is we always just kind of looked at what we wanted to do, where we wanted the show to go. I had such a vision of what I wanted this show to be. I wanted, this is always hard to kind of put into words. I knew that magic had the potential to move an audience in the same way as powerful dance or beautiful theater or incredible music. I knew that it could move an audience intellectually and emotionally in the same way that those other art forms did. but not many people were doing that. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to take magic and capture it as an art form, not as a novelty. There's nothing wrong with that, but I wanted to do it as art. I wanted it to be Broadway meets rock and roll on a stage that moves an audience. And so that was always our vision. That's why you saw the backdrops and the lights and the hazers and just all of that stuff, because I wanted that Broadway feel to the show. So that was always kind of our the undertone of our show. How do we take this show to that next point? And because for us, it was all about the theatricality of what we did, still being myself, but it was about which illusions lend themselves best to that theatrical sort of presentation.
So did you ever have, because we have it all the time, like, hey, we want to book your biggest show, we want to do it here. And then they put me in a cafetorium, or they put me in the breezeway of the college. What did you have that, or did you have a strict writer that they actually read? Because we've had it where the audience is, they can't see us.
Yeah, no, yes, that's ridiculous. So I will say that, you know, when we were in the college market, we still kept our kind of club cabaret show that had a simple one-page sort of writer. And then the illusion show only got booked out because it was, you know, in the day it was kind of pricey for colleges. So it only got booked out for special events, parents' weekends, little sibs, homecoming, welcome back, those sorts of events. And because we were playing those events, we always got to be in the nice space. We were always in the Performing Arts Center or the auditorium. So we never had to kind of fight that battle of, oh my gosh, you know, you just booked our biggest show and this stage is 8 by 10 and
Right.
you've got 2 lights right here pointing down. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will tell you this, every time you get into
that, you don't have, we still did, we had a mall show, we were going to produce Santa, and literally we had a stage.
Oh my gosh.
It was 4 by 8
It was
for our show.
I was like, our show's gonna have to be down here and we're just gonna pass stuff up. It was bad.
She had to hand stuff up to me on the stage and then pass it down to her. I mean,
yeah, no, we've been in those situations.
They
My
don't
wife has definitely been in those situations where it's like, yeah,
And
yeah,
we
that's
had
tough.
about size of stage and everything. But by the time you get there, there's no time for them to bring out more stage or find the rest of the stage. It's, oh my goodness.
yeah.
You just have to deal with it and be like, okay, great.
You know, the thing is, and what you just said it, you just have to deal with it, right? This is how you grow as a performer. You walk into those situations and you say, all right, the audience doesn't know that they haven't met the needs of my contract,
Right.
but I still have to deliver a show that this audience is going to be happy with. So
Right.
what do I need to do to kind of suck it up and say, what do I need to change on the fly? What do I need to kind of, I think that's the beauty of the challenge of being a road show.
It is different, man.
You get to a place where you can almost perform anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and we have to pick our illusions that way as well. You probably know Massanutten Resort, that's local to us. I've been working there since 2003. But I mean, people are on the sides of the stages. So that eliminates a lot of the illusions. But if I can pick an illusion that works there, and then I do it 14 weeks out of the summer, I can take that on the road and do it anywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's been a blessing and a curse, but it's been a blessing because I have that logistic to do. You know, we don't pick illusions that you can't be viewed from other angles because you never know. You get that mall. We had people entering the mall behind our show.
Right.
They put us at the opening of a mall.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Behind us, and yet there they were.
There was no curtains, no anything. Yeah.
It was interesting.
I think the most challenging situation I've ever been in like that was so with the program that I'm doing now, before I kind of fully went over to this, I was still doing the show or a show and doing this work. And so one of my biggest projects is in Russia. And I, you know, it breaks my heart that I haven't the opportunity to go back since the war, but I've probably been there six or seven times. And the last time I was there, no, the time before last that I was there, I was actually in Ekaterinburg at the Yeltsin Center, the Yeltsin Presidential Library. It's this really beautiful structure in Ekaterinburg. And we have a consulate in Ekaterinburg. And they had brought me in to do some work with some of the organizations that serve people with disabilities, but they also wanted me to do a show at the Yeltsin Center representing the US Embassy in Russia. So it was a big deal Christmas time. So the German embassy had done something, and the Italian embassy had done something, and the Austrian embassy had done something. We weren't on really great terms with Russia when I was there that time. And they came to me, they had booked this big room in the Yeltsin Center. And the lady that was in charge came to me and she said, "Can you talk to the consulate general and see if he can move into a smaller room?" And I said, "Okay, is there a reason why?" And she goes, "Yeah." She said, "There's no way you're going to fill this big room because of the relationship between the two countries right now." And I said, "Oh," I said, "Okay." I said, "So what size is the other room?" And she said, "It's about 300. I said, "Well, wait a minute. How many did the Germans have?" And she said, "Well, the Germans had about 1,100. Well, how many did the Italians have?" "Well, they had about 1,300. "Well, how many did the Austrians have?" "About 1,300. I said, "Well, how big is our room?" She goes, "It's about 2,000. And I said, "Can you get me on a television show?" And she's like, "Sure." So they got me on this morning show with these two really perky guests who also spoke English. And I did like a 20-minute spot. I was only supposed to be on for 5, but we just kind of clicked and we went. So by the time the show rolled around, we had like 2,200 people in the Yeltsin Center. And now they're packed on the floor. They've gone up to the second level. They've ridden the elevators up to the third level and the fourth level, and they're looking down. And now they've crammed into the elevators and they've gone up the elevators so they can see down to the stage.
Oh my goodness.
And kids are on the stage. Like, they've come on the stage now and they're sitting around the front edge of the stage. And I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I am like totally surrounded. Even my steepest angles from the top, I can't hide any, it was just total exposure. But that's where your brain kicks in and your experience kicks in. And you're like, okay, what do I need to do? And how do I need to do this trick? And how do I need to adapt this trick? And you just make it work. But the experiences that you guys are having, that's what gives you that ability to do that. You just kind of go, all right,
and
let's go.
I'm sure other magicians have it, but they don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, that's part of show business.
Right.
You have that. But
Yeah.
it's not above my ego to say that wasn't a fun show. That was crappy. But here's the other thing. And we try to do the best we can. I mean, I'm doing my job, right?
Right.
But I told Natalie at the end when the lady, and I said, "I'm so sorry. It didn't look professional. I was doing this." And I'm apologizing to the lady. I did the best I could with what we had. And she said, "Honey, it was great." She said, "We're just happy that Santa could read this year. He couldn't read the night before Christmas the year before. They hired a Santa that was illiterate, and they gave him a book and said, 'Go ahead.' He couldn't read. So just the fact that Santa could read this year, they were happy. I could have done anything." You don't think about that.
Yeah.
We're just thinking about us. It's all us. It's all show. Our stage is small.
Yeah.
Santa can read. Show is great. So I just, curiosity, we go to Mexico every year on vacation. We always go to Cancun. We love it down there. What translation app do you use when you go to these other countries? You haven't learned fluent Russian.
I don't. I usually work with I do have Google Translate on my phone, and I think that's probably the one I use most often. But when I perform in those countries, I work with a translator, with an interpreter.
Okay. All right. Google Translate. Yeah. I'm always looking for a good app. I just want to talk to these people. I want to have conversations. I hate doing bad sign language. And I want to bond with people. I want to show them magic. I want to have fun with the natives. I like having fun. Yeah.
Let me look real quick. I'm sure it's Google Translate. Oh no, it's just called Translate. It just looks like that.
Okay.
That's backward. But it looks like that little guy right there.
Yeah, I think I have that on my phone. We have that one. Yeah.
And I use it a lot, but with my work, I usually work through a translator. I speak Spanish, so any of this Latin American countries or Spanish countries, I can usually get along pretty good. But the rest of them, and then there's some languages that the first time we did a Europe tour, we started in Spain and we did like 6 shows in Spain and then jumped over to Italy and did 5 shows in Italy. And translator, my Spanish translator was awesome. She was probably like 28, really perky, matched my personality on the stage. She wanted to be behind the curtain, like doing the voice of God sort of translation. And I was like, no, 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 you need to be with me. You need to be with me on the stage. You need to match my energy. And we clicked after the first show to the point that she would kind of sit off to the side and we would banter back and forth with each other and she would translate. And it just brought these audiences into the show. And then when we jumped to Italy, our translator was a government employee. She was like a legit, UN kind of translator, no emotion. All she did was translate. And after our first show there, I remember being in the lobby afterwards, and this family came up to me and in great English, they said, "We had such a good time, but you really didn't need the translator. She was awful." And the translator was standing right next to me.
Golly. I keep wanting to learn Spanish, but technology keeps improving. By the time I take time to learn it fluently, I'm not going to need it. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for technology. Yeah.
Highly recommend Jump Speak if you're looking for a good like language app.
Well, we homeschool our little girl, and we said as a family we were going to do it together this year. And time,
we haven't yet. Yeah.
Time.
Trying to figure out when to squeeze that in on top of everything else is just.
It sounds like a good idea, though, for all of us to get together to learn together. It would be
that
great.
Would be fun. Yeah, that would be lots of fun.
Time. We also have 3-year-olds running around. We also have businesses to run and podcasts and television shows and shows. Great. So Memphis, Texas. How did you end up in Lynchburg?
Cindy was from Lynchburg.
I figured she was from further south. She just seemed like a Southern belle to me. She seemed
she was from Lynchburg. So when we were living in Texas, she and Stan came to a very mutual parting of the ways. We're all still really great friends. And she had become my best friend. I mean, there was in that space between working and starting in the college market, there was a lot of work, just, foundational work to put into place, all the conferences that I needed to do and the contacts that I needed to make. So I quit my job right after the Christmas holidays in January. And I didn't actually work again until the following January was when I got my first gig. So that first year, I was just beating the pavement, trying to put the show together, trying to make it work. Cindy was working, and she would come over. She would come over every day for lunch, and she would spend lunch with me. And she'd often swing by like Wendy's and pick me up a burger. And she would come over and we would have lunch and I would eat this burger. And there were so many times when that's the only thing I had in a day. She never knew that. She never knew that her bringing me lunch this might be the only thing that I was eating that day. But there were lots of days that was the case, because everything that I had was going into putting the show together. And she just became my best friend. We were best friends. If you asked her, she would say we never dated, because it was just, we were just friends. And I fell in love and married my best friend.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
So sweet.
When did you find out that she was keeping you alive? At what point did you find that out?
No, not until after we were married. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Aww.
Yeah. She was definitely keeping me alive.
Where are you guys now? You were local boy done good. I mean, I was north of Charlottesville. So Lynchburg, you were in my backyard and you were this international star on the cover of magazines, traveling the world. And then I heard you moved away.
I'm
Or
in
did you move across
Arkansas.
Arkansas? Yeah,
Yeah.
you did.
Oh, oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's Arkansas?
my mom and dad retired to Arkansas, and as they're getting older, and I have a sister there, and so Cindy and I kept talking about wanting to get closer to them. But you know what it's like when you're doing 400 shows a year and your life is crazy. When are you going to find time to actually move? And COVID hit, and I wasn't traveling. So we put our house on the market and sold our house and moved during the middle of COVID to get closer to my parents.
Nice.
Wow, that's good, man.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. People don't understand that aspect of it. I think some family thinks like, I don't know what they think, can you come to the family reunion? No, we have shows. Can you come to this year? No, we have shows. Can you come this year? No. Then they stop asking.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm available. When is the reunion? I could have made that one.
Yeah.
Keep asking,
Yeah.
it's hard.
It is hard. And I think that that's probably the hardest part. It's great that, I was really fortunate because I had Cindy. And so we were traveling together. It was, you're with the people that you love. When we left the college market to move into the performing arts market, I remember we had just done this second national showcase, and a friend of mine who was an agent named Liz Silverstein, she came up to me after our showcase, and she said, "You don't belong here anymore in the college market." And I said, "Well, I don't know where to go." And she said, "Well, I know where you need to go." And she's the one that introduced me to the performing art industry. And I remember asking her, I said, "Would you represent me?" And she said, "Oh, no, I'm fine art. I represent dance, modern dance and ballet and that sort of thing." And when I came into the performing arts industry, it was considered, magic was still kind of considered spectacle. So it was me, it was Harry Blackstone Jr., it was David Copperfield, and it was a magician out of Philadelphia called Landis. I don't remember Landis's last name. I want to say Scott, but I'm not really sure. And he was more of a children's kind of performer. Beautiful, beautiful show. And then of course we all knew who Harry and David were. And so I still had 2 years of college dates that were booked. So now I had this padding to start to bring myself into the performing arts industry. So I would, again, go to those conferences. I was self-represented, which is unheard of in the performing arts industry, because if you're at that level, if you're good, you're supposed to have an agent. That's the thinking. And I didn't want an agent. I didn't have an agent in the college market. I wanted to have those relationships with the buyers. So I wanted that same thing to happen in the performing arts world. So I started going to those conferences. I didn't book anything for 3 years. And I do remember people would stop by and they would look, but this is that marketing thing. Everything changed. In the college market, we were the magic of Kevin Spencer. And then when we got into and then I think in the college market, we may have at some point changed to the Spencer's magic. We did the Spencer's Magic and Illusion. But when we got into the arts market, we needed to change the perception of what magic was. So we called our show Theater of Illusion. It was no longer just the magic of Kevin and Cindy Spencer. It was Theater of Illusion. And now people would stop by and say, "Tell me what this Theater of Illusion thing is." And we would say, "It is a theatrical presentation of grand illusion." That's what the show was. And they would go, "Well, that sounds really interesting." And so my third year was when somebody finally walked into my exhibit booth and they said, "So you've been here for 3 years. I've seen you every year." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Get a calendar. Let's see if we can find a date." And so this guy booked a date, and I didn't know it at the time, but he happened to be a pretty heavy hitter in the industry. And so once he booked us, everybody was like, "Did you see that? Steven booked those Spencer guys." And then that started kind of getting people's curiosity. I should go talk to them because Steven booked him. And before you knew it, it just started to roll. And it allowed the show to just even continue to grow to the beast that it was when we retired.
See, I think a lot of people can't wrap their head around those 3 years. You know, if you have a passion for it, that's what made you a success. Is you went 3 years with nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I did a 24-hour magic show for charity. I got nothing out of it. I got press. I got my name in the paper, but I was raising money for the Children's Miracle Network. Can I stand in front of your Walmart and just ask money for your charity and do magic to get? No. I went to the next Walmart. Can I? No. I had to ask 10 Walmarts. Could I ask to raise money for their charity for the Children's Miracle Network? I would be doing it for 24 hours straight. Spectacle, got the press, got the attention. Everybody went. It was a marketing. Everybody, Children's Miracle Network loved it. Walmart loved it. It was great PR for me. It was great all the way around. But it took 10 no's. People don't want that. They get 1 or 2 no's, they're done.
They want the instant.
You had 3 years of no's. That's hard.
Those overnight successes happen over years. Not quite so overnight. You just have all the hard work behind it.
You know, my faith is such an important part of my journey. And I think in all of this, faith played such a huge role in the confidence of where I thought that we needed to be. You know, we just felt like this is what I should be doing. This is what I wanted to do. This is what I've always wanted to do. And I can remember, you know, growing up in Christianity, people saying, oh, but it's magic, you know, blah, 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 blah. And you think about that, right? There's a point at which you go, all right, well, you know, they keep saying that. What about that? And I can remember somebody saying to me, you know, quoting me Psalms and saying, the Bible says that if you'll delight yourself in the Lord, he'll give you the desires of your heart. And I said, okay, so tell me exactly, you know, I dove into those verses. And I just can remember thinking, if I'm delighting myself in God, if I'm doing those things that God wants me to do, and this desire that I have to be in entertainment and to be a magician is not his desire for me, he's going to change that. If I'm delighting myself in the Lord, he's going to give me the desires of my heart, because my desires are going to be his desires for me. And it didn't change. And so I went into this with this confidence that I knew it was going to be hard, but I was confident that this was the place I was intended to be, that God needs his people everywhere, in every situation, in every occupation, to be a representative of who he is. And we do the best we can in those situations. And that was kind of what drove us. We had a conviction that this is where we were supposed to be.
I love that.
Every theater show we do, we say a prayer. My little boys are with the babysitter, so it's just me, my daughter, and my wife. And we just ask that the audience sees him through us. That's Absolutely. It. Just let us have a great show. Make sure we do the switch okay and metamorphosis. Don't trip. And let them see him through us. That's all we can ask. And, you know, and thank you for this opportunity, because every night I walk on stage, I am a 7-year-old kid, and I get to do this for a living, man.
It's a blessing.
I'm so happy. But also, was magic like what we're doing in the Bible days? That was a totally different thing, man.
Totally different thing.
There was no kids' birthday party magicians back then. There was no Spencer's Art of Illusion back then. That was totally different, man. Yeah,
totally different. You know, and that's and there's the conundrum, right? Because people want they want to be in a 21st century Christianity, but they want to pull us back to first or second century civilization, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work that way. So I love that's your prayer. You know, let us do everything we do to the glory of God. Let people see, because of who I am on that stage, let them see you. And I can tell you, as the show started to grow, and I can remember there was a time in my career where it was like, holy smokes, what have I done? You know, it was great when it was just me and Cindy. And then we hired a couple of people, and then we hired a couple more people, and then we hired a couple more people. And now you're on the road with people, which also means now you're on the road with a payroll, and you got a truck, and you got a bus, and you're hauling around 15 tons of equipment, and your contract writer has gone from 2 pages to 36 pages, and now there's a hospitality writer that's connected to it. I mean, it just got to the place where the only fun part of it was when you got to be on stage doing the show. Now, I was so fortunate. Cindy and I were so blessed because we had a great crew. Our crew they were fantastic. They were so committed to making me look good. When I walked on that stage, it wasn't just me walking on that stage. I might be the only person you're looking at for 2 hours, but there was this whole group of people behind me whose only goal was to make me look good. And they worked very, very hard at that. And so
I remember following those adventures on YouTube, and I was just playing on it today, looking, and day off, laundry day, and they just did a little vlog in the laundry room. I mean, and then you'd stop and eat. You went to the Alamo. I remember watching all that. I was researching you, but I remember watching that 20 years ago and just following along. It was just awesome, man. So cool.
My crew used to get so upset because I had a video camera in my hand all the time. I still have probably 20 terabyte of video that nobody has ever seen, just of experiences on the road. I'll tell you a freak story. We were on tour in the West, going across New Mexico. And again, this is just me. We're pulling into one of these truck stops in the middle of nowhere in Deming. I think it was Deming, New Mexico. And I jump out of the bus, like, no, yeah. And I run up to the fuel pump so that I can videotape the truck coming in, right, to get fuel. And I'm videoing all of this. And the girls now go inside, and I'm following them in. And this guy opens the door for them and go. So I go in, and as I go into the truck stop, this guy looks at me and goes, "Did you get me on video?" And I went, he's the guy that held the door open. I said, I'm not really sure. Is that a problem? He goes, no, it's not a problem. I'm going to be famous someday. And I was like, oh, okay. So I walk on in, and we're walking around. Now he's following me through the store, and he keeps asking me questions. So what do you guys do? What is that out there? And he's straightening things up on the shelves. So I figure he just works there. So now it's time for me to pay for the fuel. Everybody's heading back out. I get to the cashier, and I go, "That guy you got working here is an interesting dude." And she goes, "Oh, he doesn't work here." I said, "No." And she goes, "No, he's been here for a couple of weeks. He came in and he bought a shovel and some tape, and he's just been around." So as I walk out the door, he goes, "Don't forget, I'm going to be famous someday." And I said, "And what are you going to be famous for?" And he says, "Well, I've been burying bodies in the desert."
Oh, no.
Right. So now I've got all of this on video. So we get back in, and now we're pulling out, and I'm feeling a little weird about what just happened. Yeah. So now one of my guys takes the video camera, and he puts it on me because I'm on the cell phone talking to the state police. And I say, "I don't know what's going on. We just left this truck stop on I-10 just outside of Deming. There's this dude there who says he's been burying bodies in the desert. You might want to go check him out." So that's the last we heard of it. And when I actually cataloged that video, it's called Serial Killer in New Mexico. So now fast forward like 10 years, and my wife calls me on the road, and she says, "Are you watching the news?" I'm like, "No, what's going on?" She goes, "They're digging up bodies in New Mexico." I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, they're digging up bodies in New Mexico. You need to turn on the news." So I turn on the news, and sure enough, they're digging up bodies close to where we were. So she's like, "I think you need to call the FBI." Well, that's a whole nother can of words when you're a magician calling the FBI. So I get on the phone with the FBI, and I'm like, "I'm calling about this dude you're digging up these bodies in New Mexico." "Well, who are you?" So I tell him, like, "Well, why were you out there?" So I tell him. So now they transfer me to the next dude. And he's like, "So who are you?" And I'm a magician. "What were you doing in New Mexico?" "We were on tour. We were going through that." "You're a touring magician." "Right. Okay." So they finally get me to the guy and he goes, well, tell me what you got. And I said, well, I've just got this video of this weird guy. And he goes, do you know about when it was? And I said, I don't. I said, maybe 2005, 2006, somewhere in there. And he goes, well, if you can find it, make me a copy and send it to me. So I get home, find it. I call him back and I goes, well, it was 2008. Now all of a sudden he's like, 2008? Can you overnight that to me?
Oh
So
my.
right. He said, because that falls more in the timeline of the decay of the bodies at this point. So I do burn him a copy. We overnight it to him. Turns out the dude that's on my video is the serial killer that they ended up like arresting in New Mexico. So
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I don't want any
crazy,
footage
right?
like that. I don't want any footage like that. I don't like that.
Oh my goodness.
But we used to take all, we used to take all that video and we'd like edit it into these short little clips and then throw it up on YouTube.
Wow.
man.
Wow.
Until my guys were like, quit putting all of us on YouTube. It's like, okay.
I loved it. I loved it. Dude, we've already went an hour. I haven't even talked about your new stuff. But listen, I love you. If you want to do this soon, we'll do a part 2 soon to tell everybody what you're doing nowadays. Does that
Sure.
sound good?
That sounds great. I'd love to do that.
We'll get you in the next couple weeks. I promise. We'll make
Okay.
it work.
Sounds great.
Where can everybody find you? Give us your YouTube, give us your Facebook, Instagram, wherever you want to send people to right now.
Sure. The website is simple. It's kevinspencerlive.com. Instagram, Magic Guy 2012. And
Awesome.
Facebook is just Kevin W. Spencer.
Nice.
Kevin, we ended on dead bodies in this episode. I can't wait to see what next episode comes up with. I never would have expected this, man. But I'm telling you, seriously, you have been an inspiration to me for my career. I love you like a brother. You've always been there. If I made a phone call, you've always answered it. I was a nobody. You took me like Henning took you under his wing and just treated me like one of you guys. So I can't thank you enough. You were awesome. Kevin, you're great. Thank you, man.
Thank
We'll
you.
get you on soon. We'll get you on soon for that second part.
All right, part 2. We'll do it.
And the only thing left we have to say is see you next week.
Check us out online at wesisley.com and patreon.com/Wes_Isley for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled WESISELI.